So I am here to talk to you about traveling in Italy, which I know for a lot of you, I was just reading some of your comments in the chat. Looks like a lot of you have been, which is amazing. Some of you have been a lot, which is even more amazing. Well, and some of you haven't been, which is also amazing because it's a place that basically bears going to, or coming to, I suppose, as it were, again and again and again. So I am now going to, I can do this. I was saying also before, just 2 minutes ago, that I am not very technological, but I'm going to make this happen right now. All right, we're sharing screen. We are going to the presentation. We want the presentation to be presenting. That's what we want. And then, yes. Oop, nope, hold on, not quite yet. That's not what I wanted to do. I want to share this. Yes, right? Yay. Okay, and then I present. Yes. Neat. All right. So how to enjoy Italy like an Italian is what I decided to sort of center this talk on today. So I guess I'm going to get into exactly what that means. And it's something that I feel really fortunate to have gotten to explore for the last 11 plus years of my life. And it has taken on a whole new meaning for me during this pandemic time. So I will start off with who I am. So ma chi sei means who are you? And it's the sort of question that an Italian would ask you, sort of like, not just who are you, but like, who are you? So I started there, which is to say, I am certainly, as most of you can probably tell from my accent, not Italian. So I'm originally from Asheville, North Carolina. And as you can see right here, I moved to Italy in 2009. Well, unofficially, and then I moved here officially in 2010, 11, and I spent the last, well, minus last year, which doesn't really count, the 10 years before that working as a tour guide in Rome. That job and that title has so many meanings to me, especially now, I guess, in a year plus of not working as a tour guide. I'd say I've done probably less than 10 tours since March 2020. Whereas normally I used to do 10 plus tours every single week. So it's been really, really interesting because despite the fact that I spent pretty much the last decade of my life being on other people's Italian vacations with them, I think it's this past year that has made me really understand and absorb something that I think I had before, but I didn't necessarily know how to define it, which was, what is it about the act, not just about Italy. What is it about Italy is a question I've been asking for a while, but what is it about the Italians that just like inspires this desire to lounge and vacation in this way that I think I tried to intellectually explain it to so many clients before, like, oh no, please slow down. And then it's been in this past year of all of us being forced to slow down that I suddenly I've started really understanding it, I guess, almost like putting my finger on it. So without further ado, you might have noted, oh, and I guess I should also mention from my last slide that in 2020, I feel like this is an important thing about me just to throw in the very beginning of 2020, pre-pandemic, January, I had decided to pivot my life towards hosting wellness retreats in Italy. So yoga retreats, meditation retreats, sort of like find yourself retreats. And I'd scheduled 5 of them in January of 2020. And will say, actually, by some incredible COVID miracle, did host one in Sicily with just Europeans in September of last year. But so I've really, really pivoted away. I was planning on pivoting away from tour guiding anyways. And yeah, just kind of worth mentioning on a personal level that that's where I am, how I am, who I am. And then you'll see that the last thing says italianizzata. So italianizzata is a word that I have been identifying with for the past couple of years. And it mainly, but it really, as you can see, it literally means just being Italianized, assimilating into the culture, figuring out the identity of the culture. And I would by no means say that I have perfected or fully understood the Italians, but I guess as an American, I can't say that I have perfected or fully understand everything about being American either. So it's an ongoing, but it's a word that's used by my Italian friends to describe me. Sorry, the sun is getting very aggressive. I keep on turning myself. You're eventually going to be at my couch. So Italianized, my Italian friends make fun of me because I have these rose-colored glasses when it comes to Italy and Italian culture. And I've lived here for over 10 years and I still have them. And when I talk about Italy, I'm currently in Rome. I've been in Rome this whole time. And as in for the past 10 years. And yeah, it's like I ignore all of the other things about Italian culture that also can be kind of, every culture has ups and downs, and just sort of have these rose-colored glasses. So that's Italianizzata. So the question that I've been asking myself for definitely the past year, probably the past 10 years, possibly my entire life, is what is it that we love about Italians so much? And I think, again, it's a country, it's a culture, it's a way of living that's easy to love. And so what I'm kind of trying to do in this presentation is explain what my interpretations of that are after a year of being more Italianizzata than I ever had been in my 10 years living here. So we're going to start with the easy one, which is l'estate italiana. And that means Italian summers. I had never had an Italian summer until, of all of the strange times in my life to have one, 2020. So as most of you probably know, and I guess it's worth just giving a little background in case you don't, in Italy, we went into full lockdown, not allowed to leave your house except for grocery stores and pharmacies last year from the first week of March until the first week of May. So it was 10 and a half weeks total, 11 weeks total, 10 weeks total that we were in complete lockdown. What that meant was that when we opened back up after that, for a very brief period, Italy got to live a slightly less pandemic life until, well, the obvious happened, which is people started traveling out of Italy and bringing COVID back. And then everything happened in September. But to not dwell on that quite yet, what that meant for me, having worked grueling, insane hours in the Colosseum in the Vatican, again, being on other people's vacations, but never actually being on my own vacations in the summer, was that in 10 years of living here, I dipped my toes into the Italian summer, but I'd never fully immersed myself in it. And this year, I just kept having these moments where I went, oh my gosh, they literally, from June 1st until September 1st, the entire country just summers. Like they work, I guess, they do things, but all my Italian friends who aren't in tourism are suddenly, they're everywhere. They're at the beach, they're going places. Everything is slower. And that's number one reason why we want to summer like the Italians, or vacation like the Italians. Number two, this image is a little fuzzy, sorry, is pian piano, which means slowly. And as I said, it comes with a gesture, which is like this gesture. And so the idea is anything that you can do it slower. Anything that you want to experience, you can experience it over a longer timeline. So pian piano would be like, hey, are we ready for dessert yet? Like pian piano, like calm down, wait, everything will happen in due time. And I think it's a beautiful, really like life way to live in general. And certainly a way to experience vacation, right? So when you're on vacation, rather than being like, oh gosh, we have to do this, we have to do this, we have to do this, you just take everything slowly, and somehow you manage to, maybe you don't do everything you thought you were going to do, but you enjoy it all a lot more. L'aperitivo. So if you've ever been to Italy, and honestly, even if you haven't, hopefully you've had an aperitivo at some point in your life, which basically it's all sort of, they piggyback onto each other, right? So aperitivo obviously is a longer experience in the summer, because here in the summer, in the midsummer, it doesn't get dark until like 9:30 or 10. And generally speaking, that's going to be when you eat dinner. So the idea is you have drinks before dinner, and the drinks are, you're not going to have a strawberry daiquiri because that's going to fill you up. You're going to have something that has like herbally sort of, so like a bitter drink. You can also have wine. You can also have beer. It's a pretty broad definition. But the point is, the whole idea is that you're having something not super, super alcoholic, unless it's Negroni. Okay, there aren't rules with aperitivo. The point is, you drink, you eat. You drink, you eat. You keep eating while you drink, but you don't eat too much. And then, of course, like, we could talk about it from a marketing point of view, which is you're eating salty food, so then you want to drink more, which is just a brilliant way for businesses to sell more drinks. But the whole idea is just easing your way in to what is going to be a dinner that is also going to be you're going to ease your way through that as well. La Campagna. So this is sort of me just plugging Italian countryside, just period. Why would you, as I wrote here, feel like you have to see Florence, Venice, Amalfi Coast, Rome, and Sicily and Puglia and the Leaning Tower of Pisa in a week, when you could just be sitting there having that view? And I think Italians in general think it's crazy that, and it's not just Americans by any means, it's really most of the Western world travel in this way, where they're constantly checking stuff off bucket lists. And the way most Italians travel is just like, yeah, I'm just going to like go to the country for a while, and then that's vacation. You're supposed to rest, right? So there's a little bit of countryside. And then l'amore. And tell me that's not just the greatest picture you've ever seen. I didn't take it. I took it off the internet, but just it. And I mean, I'm not going to say I could have taken it because it's a really well taken picture. It's not really, I'm definitely not that good of a photographer, but I do see that all the time. And I think there's something to be said about Italians just love life. They love the simplicity of life. They love everyday life. They love the joy of the life that they are living, and bringing that into every aspect of life, and especially your vacations. Really, again, it helps you take things slowly and appreciate more. So what do we need to know to embody and embrace this lifestyle ourselves? Thing one, and really, I'm just saying three things right now. Thing one, slow food. So when I moved to Italy in July of 2009 for the first time ever, I was really pissed off because I couldn't find Brussels sprouts, which have always been one of my favorite foods. And I really like making Brussels sprouts. And it seems very like banal, but it was one of those things that I was like, why aren't there Brussels sprouts? And then I was only here for 3 months that summer. And then I moved back in 2010. And I remember come September, October, Brussels sprouts started coming into the grocery store. I was like, oh, they exist here. And then I realized Brussels sprouts don't grow in June. So you can't get Brussels sprouts in June here. In the exact same way that everywhere else in the world, like you can't get a good peach. I'm from North Carolina. You can't get good peaches in North Carolina in December. But you can still get peaches at the grocery store, which is weird. Slow food is the idea that your food comes from here. The movement is called Kilometro Zero, which is 0 kilometers. So something that's as local as humanly possible. A fun little fact about slow food, because I can't resist tour guiding, even when I'm not supposed to be. Fun fact about slow food is that the slow food movement, which is now, there's a university for the slow food movement. It's up in Turin. It was founded as a reaction to the first McDonald's opening in Rome, which was in 1986, which is super late for McDonald's. McDonald's pretty much opened everywhere else in the world in the 70s. And in 1986, when the first McDonald's opened right around the corner from Piazza Spagna, a bunch of people got together and started the slow food movement. So the idea is eat stuff that's local, don't overcomplicate it. So again, like if you're gonna have like pasta with red sauce, like pasta al pomodoro, pasta with tomato sauce, can be a meal. You'll feel full afterwards. It's pasta. Like you just eat more if you don't feel full. That's the great thing about pasta, right? No limits on pasta. So the idea of just taking it slowly with your food and enjoying the simplicity. And I think really applies to vacation too. I get a lot of people who come to Italy in the past. It's actually a really common thing where people are like, all I can find is pizza and pasta. And it's like, well, menus always have other stuff. You just have to know how to be creative and understand that you might not have quite as wide a variety as we might have in, say, America or Canada or even England. But it's going to be pretty high quality. Slow travel. Next. So what do we do to be like the Italians? Slow travel. We get rid of, or we graciously and lovingly put aside our bucket list, and we recognize that spending an extra day by our pool in Tuscany might be better than going and pretending to hold up the Leaning Tower of Pisa. I've done it too, don't worry, but you prioritize, you think about what you really want to see, how you want to feel, what you want to experience. And I think the Italians in general just aren't, and obviously this is a generalization for an entire country of 60 million people, but they're not quite as obsessed with bucket lists and doing and accomplishing, and maybe a little bit more into just experiencing what is around them. And I think when you give yourself the space to travel slowly, to not have a million things on your itinerary, that's kind of where the spontaneous magic also happens. And I learned that again this summer, having my first Italian summer, where my life was very, very planned up till 2019. Because needless to say, I had tours. And when tourists are coming, you're not allowed to just be like, oh, I'm sorry, I just got invited to the beach. I'm not going to be tour guiding you through the Colosseum on your one trip to Italy in your entire life. You can't do that. But the spontaneous nature of Italian travel, I think, is something that we, and I got to do it this year for the first time, and all of you can do it when you come to Italy. You can almost, it sounds a little type A, but you can almost build in slow travel, build in 2 days of spontaneity, and maybe you'll get to do something that you wouldn't have gotten to do otherwise. And then finally, slow living. So the Italians take that idea, that mentality, that pian piano, that being slow into their lives, into their daily lives. And the entire point is you can take your time doing things. And goodness knows, actually, it's like almost an insensitive thing to say when we're over a year in a global pandemic, like, let's live a little slower. But if there is, among, all of the negative things that have sort of transpired this year, a really cool takeaway is we get to live a little bit slower. We get to take our time a little bit more. And I think the Italians have sort of had that aspect down. And so then applying that idea to your travel, to your vacation, is a way to also maybe embrace being Italian a little bit more in your day-to-day. So then for the end of my presentation, before questions, I have no idea how I'm doing on time. Good. Yeah, perfect. So I put down some weekend getaways from Rome, which I didn't really advertise in my Nomadic Network speech thing, but I figured it's very literally near and dear to my heart, and something that I got to really experience a lot more again this year. There's a million places you can get away. Fuori porta literally means a weekend getaway. It means outside of the door. So I put weekend getaways from Rome because it's what's personal to me. And this picture, because you should definitely ask, is Ponza, which is on our list. So I put 6 different places that you can get away from Rome. So again, and I'm not here to preach or tell anyone how to experience their vacation, but I think the beautiful thing about Italy is that it's a country you can come back to again and again and again, and you're never going to see all of it. And I think most people who get the Italy bug, once they come, you can't get enough. And so my sort of suggestion would be base your trip in Rome, right? And obviously I'm super biased. I'm obsessed with Rome. It's been over 10 years. I'm still obsessed with it. I go out in my street and I'm the person who literally stops and smells the flowers. But so if you were to take a week in Rome or 5 days in Rome, if you have a week-long vacation, and take a couple of day trips or do half and half, these are my suggestions. So suggestion number 1 is Ponza, which is the first image that we saw as well. It is an island that is maybe 2 hours south from Rome. You drive down to the shore and then you take a ferry over to Ponza. And I confess, I went for the first time this summer. It's 2 hours away, and I'd never been because I was always working, which is beautiful and fine and totally, totally worth it. I'd heard people talk about it forever. It's very, very Italian, very small. This is basically the entire promenade that you see there. And you just kind of sit and watch the Italians be Italian, and you can rent a boat for the day and a skipper will take you out and you go to the beach, and there's no to-dos, which in my humble opinion is also kind of one of the best things about travel, is not having to-dos. So Ponza. Place number 2, Circeo. So Circeo is another little town, again, about 2.5 hours south of Rome. And it's where Italians have beach houses. So I would compare it in my Asheville, North Carolina brain, for those of you who are from the East Coast, to a Isle of Palms, Edisto Island style place, sort of like not quite a, like kind of maybe a Hilton Head, but just sort of like beach houses, not super, super, I mean, there's fancy beach houses, there's normal beach houses. You can rent a beach house there. You're really close to Rome. And then you just, again, go to your local restaurant, eat the food, hang out at the beach, watch the Italians do their Italian thing and live life. Oh, wow, that's a really bad image. Sorry, guys. So that looks kind of like a pixelated painting. L'Argentario is my personal favorite. I've been going to Argentario since I first came to Rome in 2009. There's Porto Ercole and there's Santo Stefano. You can't quite tell from this image, but for all of you who've been to the Amalfi Coast, which I'm sure those of you who've been to Italy, hopefully that's some of you, Porto Ercole and Santo Stefano look a little like the Amalfi Coast, but they're mainly just Italians. And again, I think since the whole sort of theme of my talk with y'all is living Italy like an Italian, the idea is it's going to be easier if you have a car. It's going to be easier if you bring your phrase book or have a really nice working use of Google Translate, which we all do because we all have smartphones. But again, the beauty is in just experiencing and seeing. Then we move on to the countryside. So Orvieto is definitely not, well, it's a city that's in the country. Beautiful, beautiful city built on top of a hilltop. You can see my arrow, right? So that's like tufo, which is it's volcanic rock. It's the same material as like pumice stone, like what you clean your feet with. And the city is built on top of tufo. Right there is the really famous church in the center of the city, which was built in the 13th century. And again, just a beautiful, tiny little town, pretty frequented by tourists now, but easy to get to on a train. And then again, if you want to have the local experience, maybe you're staying, right down here in the wine fields. And then you just tootle up, take a little, what do you call them? Like a ski lift, like a funicular up to the city. 3 or 4 or 5, we're on 5. The Lazio countryside. So Lazio is the region that Rome is in. And it's really overlooked. So if you've ever heard of the Tuscan countryside, maybe these are the types of images that you've associated with it. And the amazing thing about the region where Rome is, Lazio, is that most of the rest of the countryside is pretty unexplored by tourists. So it's really, really easy to get out and feel like you were in the middle of nowhere, in the like fields and the sticks of Italy when you're 20 minutes outside of Rome. And for me, it's like, yes, Val d'Orcia and where Chianti is stunning. Tuscany is stunning, but you can also get 20 minutes away and end up right here. And then my final place is Montefalco, mainly because it's where one of my favorite wines is from. And I was just trying to find my final one. And also because it's a beautiful little hilltop town, same thing. I was looking for places that aren't super visited, like aren't super on the tourist thing, tourist book, tourist block, tourist, like, you know what I'm trying to say, that are overlooked by tourists, I guess is what I'm trying to say. So Montefalco is surrounded by wineries. You can rent a house and stay there for a few nights. You go in, you make friends. And I think that's the other thing, is that when you're open to these types of experiences where you don't have a lot planned, that's when nonno and nonna invite you into their home for drinks. And that's the kinds of experiences on a vacation that you remember for the rest of your life. So then, yeah, wrapping up, and then we'll take questions. Dolce far niente. So the dolce far niente is an Italian motto. It's a lifestyle. It's an existence. And it literally means the sweet joy of doing nothing. And if there is one thing that I can teach you about how to actually experience Italy like an Italian, it's that you fully embrace this idea of the sweetness, the joy of not having plans, of not having an itinerary, of wandering down that street that you might get lost on, of putting away Google Maps. As someone who's been tour guiding since before Google Maps existed, I actually remember when people started having Google Maps because they'd ask me really weird questions. So you're a tour guide and they're like, where's the McDonald's in Venice? It's like, I don't know the answer to that. Why would I ever need to know that? I live in Rome. But the dolce far niente, you put away your maps and you enjoy doing nothing. You sit over lunch longer, you get lost, you make sure that you build in time to your Italian vacation to, again, experience Italy like an Italian in this way that it's almost like when you're open to the world, when you're open to being in Italy with the Italians, they'll open up Italy for you. So yeah, I think that's me. Cool. Are we good for questions?
Yeah, thank you so much, Rachel. That was incredible. And I think everyone can agree that these pictures basically had us salivating over the screens, and you didn't even show any food.
You know what? I literally realized that right afterwards. It's because my food photography skills are terrible. So all of my food photography is just like, even if it's the best thing I've eaten, it's kind of like, yeah, that's kind of mediocre. Also, I have an iPhone like 3. It's a 6, but still doesn't take great pictures. And the food photography online was like mainly anyways, you're right. Food is next. I'll do a talk.
Yes, absolutely. But I mean, I think that just goes to show how hungry we are for traveling in general. Oh, this is great. Do you want to explain this?
I was going to say, I just remembered that I had a final slide. Oops. Put that in last minute. So yeah, basically, I mean, it's really just me. What I do, I don't know what I do anymore. I was a tour guide. I think I'm still a tour guide. I think I'll be a tour guide again. I wanted to move towards doing retreats last year. I'm leading already. I have 2 retreats that are already on the books this year. I'll be in Sicily the first week of August. And then I'm doing actually 2 weekend retreats in Rome that as of right now are we're just marketing to Italians, but obviously we're hoping that that'll open up. I consult for tour companies. I'll be leading some very exciting small group tours to secret Southern Italy this summer for a company that I work for, not for my own company. And yeah, I do customized itineraries. It's not, I don't take that many clients on. Again, in 2019, that was an issue. This year, it's not yet, but 2 to 4 clients I would take on. And then I love Rome. I love taking people around Rome. If you come to Rome, you can also just get a coffee with me. We can talk about the Pantheon. We can get a coffee in front of the Pantheon. And basically, yeah, just it would be a joy and a delight to see you all in Italy under any and whatever. I mean, we'll all be traveling again, right? So yeah, questions.
This is so great. Thank you for all of this info. And I'm sure everyone's curious on what COVID is like and how Italy's opening back up, but it sounds like it kind of is little by little. I know before the call you were saying that you've moved into the orange zone, which is different from US orange zone.
Totally. Exactly. So it's funny. I've been getting so many questions about that from clients. Right now we're in orange zone until May, which basically means that restaurants and bars are only open for, and when I say bar is like a coffee bar, they're only open for takeout until the first week of May. And again, I am decidedly I'm not an epidemiologist, nor am I a politician, but what it feels like they're doing is they're trying to do the same thing they did last year. And then they're aware that they really can't because we're all just tired. We were in red zone for the past 2 weeks and it was just parks were open. The park was packed with people. People were just, it was definitely like more empty, but nothing compared to last March. So we're slowly starting to ease in terms of vaccinations. Italy, just like the rest of Europe, is definitely behind where America is right now. But I think it's honestly, it's all still speculation. Most of the people I know in the tour industry are expecting American tourists to be, I know most of us are American based, to be allowed in at some point. We just don't know exactly when, or if it's going to be a vaccine. Like, we have no idea, but my fingers are really crossed that it's going to start happening soon.
Yes,
Yeah.
we're all hoping so too. And according to the chat, everyone else is also. So
Excellent.
fingers crossed. Okay, so I want to actually start at the beginning. I kind of try to put these questions in chronological order so they make sense when you're explaining. McKinley had a question, as well as myself. When you went back to Italy after your first 3 months there, so I think that was 2009 or 2010, how was that process? Do you currently have any residency or citizenship? And McKinley wants to know if you have any advice for those of us who also want to move to Italy.
Definitely. So my process was long and twisted and windy. I did my master's here. So that was step one. Masters are it's a little more difficult than it was in 2010 to do, to get study visas. More difficult. It's more desired now, obviously, than it was then. And so there's definitely a bit more of a process around it. It used to be really easy to get a study visa here just to do an Italian language course. But that eventually basically now that's almost impossible. But master's, and I will actually just go ahead and put it all out there. My master's program, I did it in business. So I got an MBA basically with a focus on sustainable tourism. And my entire program cost less than 4,000 euros. So definitely worthwhile. And I have an MBA, which is funny bonus that I've never used, but there it is. And then once I finished that, I had already started working for a company who then hired me. I was actually their very first employee. They translated my visa to a work visa. And then basically over a longer period of time, I am now a full resident and waiting for citizenship. It is not, thank you, I know, it's very exciting. It's been a process. Italy doesn't make it easy, but Italy doesn't make any paperwork easy. I think I read somewhere not too long ago, someone was saying moving to Italy is it's a very precise combination of patience and passion. So you have to really want to move to Italy. When I go to in America, going to the post office takes 20 minutes. In Italy, the post office is a day. If I go to the post office, I don't even do the dishes that day because it's so exhausting. Paperwork is a very real thing.
And I feel they would be oh, we decided to close today for whatever reason.
Literally, exactly. Oh, it's 1. We all go to lunch.
Yeah.
Oh, of course you do. I've only been here since 9. That makes sense. Totally. Yeah. Bye. Have a good lunch. Anyway, so yeah, it's there's ways for sure. And I'd say studying is the easiest and most direct way. No matter how old you are, obviously, you can always get a master's, and there's great programs here that I'd be happy to recommend. And yeah, definitely.
Yes. So everyone, if you missed it, a good way to get in touch with Rachel, if you look back through the chat, I dropped her contact information, including getting her newsletter updates in the chat, her website, her Facebook, etc. So go ahead and scroll up and you'll be able to look for that. I'll drop it again in the chat. So I have some questions after that, Rachel. Were you already speaking fluent Italian by the time you got to your MBA there, or did you learn it the 10 years that followed?
I didn't speak a word. So I spoke fluent Spanish when I moved here, which super helps, and then eventually super hurts. So fluent Spanish is at first it was amazing, and then all of a sudden I was mixing up words, and that wasn't very cute. And there definitely was a point about 2 years into living here that I would speak Italian, and they would just be like, can you just speak in English? You're kind of speaking Spanish, you're kind of speaking Italian, we don't really understand you. And then I just had the grit and the gumption to speak with taxi drivers, speak at bars. I was too embarrassed to speak with most of my friends. Yeah, like slowly but surely I learned it. And I will say, like, I've always had a good, like, I have a good brain for languages, but really and truly, the Italians really appreciate trying, and they really appreciate, like, they want to speak Italian with you, and they're fine speaking like Italian English. So yeah, it's definitely come over time.
That's amazing. That gives the rest of us hope.
We're all, my mom speaks, I don't think my mom's here, I think my dad's here, but my mom, like, has so much gumption and just literally comes here and will just blabber out like Spanish, Italian, English, and everyone's just like, she's so sweet, it's fine. Everyone can do it, for sure.
Awesome. Okay, so I'm going to combine this next question also because it has to do with tour guiding. So Laura wants to hear more about how you became a tour guide, but if I heard correctly, I heard that you were also trying to step away from tour guiding in January 2020. So we all want to hear about that whole process. It sounds like a, go ahead.
It's a life process. So I became a tour guide in 2010 because I was obsessed with Roman history, and I was working for this big tour company before I started working for the small company that I was working for. And they basically had me memorize a 40-minute tour. We were doing free tours, so I didn't need the license to be a tour guide at that point. And I was working for tips, and I was just this like 23-year-old kid with like a lot of, I had a lot of knowledge. When I think back to my first tours, I'm like, I'm really glad they were free, like for those people, for me, for the fact that like I can morally feel okay about it. And then by the time I got hired for the company that I worked for, they got me a tour guiding license through the European Tour Operators Association. And the company that I worked for they were called Live Italy then. Now they're called Live Tours. They're an amazing company. They do maximum 6 people in their small group tours. So once you get to that person, honestly, I think I was nervous before giving tours for the first 5 or 6 years that I tour guided. Like, I would show up and I'd be like, oh, hi, I'm Rachel. Coliseum. Okay, cool. Yeah, I've got this. Like, we're here. We're all in it together. And my stepping away was, God, it's like, like, how much time do y'all have? I burnt out like multiple times. I would lose my voice every September for about 3 or 4 days straight, like where I just literally couldn't get words out. I was over giving my time and my energy to tourists in 105-degree days all summer long. And I did my yoga teacher training in 2018, and I thought I wanted to be a yoga teacher. Actually, this year, that's really all I do. I teach yoga online. I teach yoga to private clients. I really, really love retreats because it combines sort of everything. So it's like my love for Italy and my love for tourism and my love for how you can explore yourself through tourism. And then my love for, again, like Italian culture, which for me is wellness. Like Italian culture is wellness, wellness is Italian culture. Hold on just 1 second. I have an alarm going off on my phone. It's really annoying. There we go. Sorry. So yeah, I was moving towards that because it just felt like a better way to share what I like, almost like for the same reason that I gave a presentation just now on Italy, as opposed to on like, what do you guys want to know about the Colosseum? I love Roman history. I will always love Roman history. I love when I walk around the city with friends now. I'm such a like eager beaver. I'm just like, oh my gosh, do you guys want to know about that fountain right there? Because I haven't talked about it for over a year. But it's just like, I don't want it to be my pride. It's a funny thing where like it's almost like a passion now. Like if someone reaches out to me and wants me to tour guide for them, I will tour guide for them happily. It's like riding a bicycle. I'm not going to lose it, but I'm not giving my availability to most of the by the time I'd stopped in 2019, the time I was forced to stop in 2020, I had my name on like 8 or 9 companies' rosters, and it's just diminishing it, focusing more on being with yeah, sort of like getting to be with people in Italy for more than 3 hours, which again, like, it's so funny. I have so much nostalgia and I miss it sometimes. And then other times I'm like, no, this is right. This is what was supposed to happen. So yeah.
It's almost like, I mean, 2020 gave everyone kind of perspective, right? On, and forced a lot of people to step back or do something different or make a drastic change, or the year made a change for them. So it sounds like it was almost a reset that you needed. And I'm glad that you know you're not overloading and overwhelming yourself with it, and that you're coming back to it as like a passion rather than like something you're forced to do and you're giving too much. It definitely sounded like you're giving too much of yourself, and you know your cup wasn't
I was
you were depleted. So makes sense
exactly
going into the wellness space too.
exactly. I know, right? It's like the most, well, it's like, I think I told myself, because I was only, tour guiding, I was working 8 to 10 months a year, 8 to 9 months a year. So in my head, I was like, this is great. I get to travel and I get to like go around the world, and I can go to Bali or Costa Rica and I can visit my family and I can do all this great stuff with my 2 months. And then I'm getting a vacation. It's like, no, when you work 7 days a week for 8 months, those 2 months, for even if it's 4 months, like if I worked, there were days when I'd work like 19 days in a row without a break in the summer. And it's just like, it was dumb, but it was worth it. And I'm so grateful that I got the experience. And yeah, who knows what yeah, like you said, COVID reset, COVID pivot.
Yeah. Yeah,
For
came
sure.
unexpectedly for everyone. All right, so I want to get more into Italy and logistics. We had a few questions here from I'm sorry, I'm grabbing the name, Vanessa and McKinley. Do you have, okay, again, another like loaded question as far as like how many questions here, just because it's all the same bucket. So McKinley wants to know if you have a driver's license. If so, how hard was the process? And then Vanessa wants to know, how easy is it to drive a car around Italy? Can we get to those places that you mentioned with public transport, which is also what I was wondering, because I love public transport.
Okay. So do any of you work for the Italian Driver's License Association? I'm really hoping not. Getting an Italian driver's license has been on my to-do list for about 4 years now, especially this year with COVID. I actually have the app on my phone. I do the quizzes about once a week, and I consider getting my Italian license. The test is super hard because it's all in Italian, and it's a written test, and it's like 300 questions, and you have to get something like ridiculous, like 80% right. And it's all multiple choice questions. And a bunch of them are false, like positives are false, like double negative. Like, so it's like, you really, really, really have to read through them. And so you just do the app questions until you memorize them. And there's like 18,000 questions. And then you pay a driving school and you get a driver's license. I call myself lazy for not having an Italian license, because at this point it's been 10 years and it's about time. I have plenty of friends who've done it, which is why I know the whole process. One of my good friends is actually, she's maybe 56, and she just got her license during this year, and she's been here for 20 years. It's so I don't own a car. I rent cars on my American license, which I probably shouldn't say out loud, but I do, because I do have a driver's license. And yeah, basically, so that's my like very personal, like, ooh, kind of embarrassing, I really should have a license question. Sorry, guys. I wish I was the success story. I just created a link to send you guys a newsletter like 30 minutes before this presentation. So I just take my time with some things. But it is not hard to get around to most of the places that I mentioned on public transportation. The train system's amazing in Italy. You, again, want to speak some basic Italian to be able to get cars. Like taxis are really easy to find. Almost every single city will have at least a couple of taxi numbers who will pick you up. Taxis aren't super expensive. When it comes to like the beach places, again, all of them, Argentario, I wouldn't really recommend without a car, but everything else is very doable. You can get like bikes once you're at beaches, so you can bike around. I'd say in general, with a car is more fun. And I'm very lucky because I just happen to have a lot of friends who, are Italian. So they went through the driver's license process when they were 18, as opposed to me. But Italy's very doable by train, I guess is my final answer. Yeah.
It almost that's great to know. I feel like the US is the only non-public transport friendly
Yeah, decidedly.
but it almost sounds like, I mean, is Italy as a whole just trying to discourage people to get their driver's license? That it sounds impossible. Like truly, like are they trying to be more eco-friendly where they're not trying to have more exhaust and fumes and gas in the air? Like that's crazy. 300 questions for a driver's license test.
I know. I would love to say that that's what it is,
right.
But they like everything bureaucratic. And this is the thing, like in terms of living here, and actually, wait, y'all are all tourists, so you can rent cars like legally 100%. I can rent cars in this sort of weird gray area of, as an American with an American driver's license, I'm allowed to, but as a resident of Italy, I really shouldn't. So yeah, you can rent cars, and yeah, you don't have to worry about your driver's licenses. Lucky yous.
Okay. All right. So Ross wants to know, are Europeans, like the sentiment of Europeans traveling back to normal within Europe, or are they still feeling cautious? I know it differs by country at the moment, but what are you seeing in tourism trends and whatnot?
I would say, yeah, like it's hard to qualify the entire continent of Europe. Like the UK is still obviously completely closed and no one wants to go there or come back from there. I'm definitely hearing a lot of people, like it's sort of like last year, that's sort of what brought COVID back. That's what our second wave came from. But I do think that European travel will start to open come June. That's my instinct. And that Europeans will move around. And again, like no posit, I don't know for sure, but I think they'll move around again, like the places that are kind of popular to move around. With that being said, I have European friends who live here who've traveled back to see their parents during the last couple months even, and it's been fine. Like I know people who've been to Spain, I know people who've been to Sweden, I know people, again, like all for family reasons, not for tourism. But I do, yeah, the impression I get is that it's going to open more and more and more. With that being said, I think also vaccinations have a bit to do with everything.
Okay. That's great to know. I know I hate the news sometimes because it's like Spain may go into another lockdown. I'm like, well, tell me when they do. Don't tell me that they are thinking about it. So I'm always like, wait, are they is this country in a lockdown or not? I can't remember because someone reported they may be in a lockdown. They may be going.
Exactly. I feel like there's a lot of I so many times have had this I mean, obviously during the first lockdown, it was major, but the string of messages of friends like, oh my gosh, you guys are in lockdown. I saw it in CNN. And I'm like, yeah, we're fine. Like, it's okay. Like you can't come, but you couldn't come before lockdown either. So, we all, I mean, but I do think generally speaking, the prognostic's good. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Yay.
Okay, great. Shannon wanted to share a tip. Get an international driver's license in the States before leaving. No test, and we get ours each year at AAA for $50 or so, and works beautifully throughout most all countries we have visited. I'm so sorry to ask this, but what side of the road do you drive on in Italy?
No worries. On the right. The normal side. The right side. Okay. The normal side.
I lived in Australia for a year and I could not get over the fact that everything was opposite. And even crossing the street honestly gave me like heart palpitations because I was like, this is like,
yeah,
I don't know where to look first. So now I'm confused because it's like some countries drive on a different side. And I'm like, wait, I thought, I don't know. Anyways, basically, Shannon has that great tip.
Great tip. Yeah, totally.
I know Laura also mentioned earlier that I thought I read, did I read you're a writer as well, Rachel?
Yeah, I am. It feels really weird to say that out loud. I've always been a writer. And this year I got published in a literary magazine for the first time in January, about being Italianizzata, sort of my thing these days. And yeah, I write for a couple of different tour companies. I write blogs for tour companies, and then I write for Actually, you should all look up the Italy Edit. The Italy Edit is a dear friend of mine who writes for Forbes as well. It's her online magazine about Italy, and it's beautiful and stunning, and she has amazing content, and I'm starting to write for her and collaborate with her. So yeah, and then I don't know. I think
That's
that
awesome.
as I own and claim, when people say it to me now, I'm like, oh yeah, I guess I'm a writer. Weird. Yeah, I write. Weird. I don't know what I write, but I write.
I'm dropping a link to the Italy Edit in the chat.
Amazing.
Laura had mentioned earlier that she thought it would be cool to read a novel about a woman who is a tour guide on everyone else's vacation, but never her own. And I was like, yes, please write a book. Because I would buy that. Laura would buy that. They're your first 2 customers, right?
Laura, I'm there. I'll sign your copy. It's like, definitely, I have stories about tour guiding written in documents on my computer from the past 10 years. Like, you really should story after story after story. Yeah. The most, like, y'all have no idea the things. it's the most ridiculous job in the entire world, honestly. It's very strange, but thank you, Laura. That's very good inspiration.
We have a few more fun questions. So Megan wanted to know, what was the favorite wine that you had mentioned, if you can remember back to that, because I think I missed.
Yes. So Montefalco Rosso, which is literally just red like wine, and it's made with Sangiovese grapes, which is Sangiovese. Super tanniny. I am not like a wine. I can fake my way through a wine conversation like nobody's business, but basically it's like a rich, dry red wine, and the Sagrantino is the sort of higher end. Right, Sagrantino di Montefalco is Sagrantino, and yeah, basically for me, Umbria, which is where Montefalco. No, wait. No, Montefalco's in Umbria. Wow, brain fart. Umbria has amazing red wines. Like, most of my favorite red wines are from UMBRIA.
This is so I literally just Googled it. First search item that pops up is Forbes wrote an article on Montefalco Rosso in 2015. Funny. And so I'm going to drop that. I was like, this is amazing. And the first sentence is like, Umbria has great wines, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, this is so funny.
Umbria has great wines. I was trying to figure out what I wanted my third place to be. And I was having coffee with a friend literally earlier today, and he was like, Montefalco. And I was like, oh my gosh, of course. So Montefalco is actually my newest addition to this presentation. And yeah, like, the wine is so good. Also, just quick plug for the Edit again, because I love her. She just did an article about women in winemaking, and I'm pretty sure that one of the women in the article that she just wrote is Umbrian as well. Not positive, but pretty sure.
Wow.
So yeah.
All right. Very cool. I've never heard of it, so now I want to go out and buy it. Let's see what Google is saying about price point here. If you live in the US, it's running about, oh wait, these aren't like the right. Arnaldo Capri. Is that the
Arnaldo Capri is like one of my very favorite.
Montefalco. Oh, it's a certain type. Okay, Montefalco Rosso is a certain type, like a type of
like Chianti. Exactly.
Okay. I thought it was
Montefalco. It's like Cabernet Sauvignon.
Oh, yeah. Okay. I was like,
yeah. Sorry. Arnaldo Capri is a wonderful mark, brand, label.
Yeah. Okay, that's going for all different prices, so you guys can look it up. Amy is saying Umbria has great olive oil. I heard that the sea was in Umbria at some point. They find shells in the ground. That's awesome.
It's the only green region. It's the only landlocked region in all of Italy. So there's 20 regions in Italy, and Umbria is the only one that doesn't have any coastline.
Oh, wow.
Which is interesting.
Right.
They call it the green heart of Italy.
That's awesome. Okay, so Tracy wants to know if you've ever been to Sardinia.
I have, once actually, only once, and I was up like by La Maddalena, which is the I'm really bad at directions. Northwest coast. So it's yeah, basically like some of the most beautiful beaches I've ever seen. And in all of Italy, I like Sicily more. Okay, so which I probably, well, I'm not going to offend the Sardinians. Sardinia is gorgeous. I went with friends who have a house there, and it was very, yeah, like Italian vacation, rugged, laid back, chill. Then we went to Corsica, which was pretty cool because you get to Corsica and suddenly you're in France, which is another Mediterranean island, but it's just totally different than Sardinia. But Sicily is my very favorite. Rome's my favorite city in the whole world. Sicily's my favorite region. Sicily for me is just like the culture, the food, the people, the sights. Sardinia is incredible, but I would say if you only could choose between Sardinia and Sicily, which you didn't ask me, but if you were going to, I'd go with Sicily.
Okay, so I guess my question was, this is going to be the last question. If you could live in any other Italian city besides Rome, where would you live? Would it be the region?
Sicily.
Yep.
It would be, I mean, either in the countryside, maybe even Umbria, like, or like Lazio, like in the countryside close to Rome, or somewhere in Sicily. Probably somewhere in Sicily, like off the top of my head. Sicily's like for all the things I love about Italy are like, and a lot of the things that are kind of annoying about Italy too are just magnified in Sicily. Like it's, the pace is even slower. It's like southern Italy, just like very dolce far niente. But probably, where would I live in Sicily? Like maybe Noto. I'd probably end up getting tired of it, but then I think COVID and this whole time like warp that we're in, this like weird time passing, has definitely made me question. It's not that I am against, but definitely question the my obsession with living in a city. Like I would definitely live in the countryside now, whereas 2 years ago you never would have heard me say that.
Right. You're right. And I think that's happening with a lot of places, like moving out of the city
Right.
into wherever is not the city.
Totally. My hometown is of Asheville, North Carolina is crazy right now. Like,
Oh, I
and
bet. I bet.
oh
Yeah.
my
I
God.
mean, super luxe destination spot that's been super up and coming.
Exactly. Exactly. It's like what everyone, yep. Exactly.
Oh, well, thank you
Exactly.
so much, Rachel. This was incredible. Thank you all to those who came here, answered questions, listened and learned with intent, and enjoyed Rachel's presentation. I dropped all of her information in the chat so you can get in contact with her. We appreciate this. You know, this definitely satiated our wanderlust for the time being until we can get back to it. So I'm just going to go ahead and close out the presentation with a couple of slides, and I'll just,
Did I stop my sharing?
yeah, if you don't mind. Awesome.
Not at
Thank
all.
you.
And just really quickly, I feel like it's worth me saying this. I've never sent out a newsletter in my life, y'all. I will at some point. I'm definitely planning on it. Instagram is a great place to follow me in terms of just keeping up with what I'm doing and Italy and my daily life in Rome and when I'm having retreats and etc. But like at some point in my grown-up life, I will also send out a newsletter. So if basically, maybe that's even a plus. If you're a little scared for signing up for my newsletter because you don't want spam, I've literally never sent one. So sign up for it. Who knows? Maybe you'll get one someday. No, I will actually send out the presentation, or you'll send out the presentation.
Yes, we will. I think, no, actually people will be able to contact you for it. So
Cool. Perfect.
Yep.
I'll send you guys the presentation on a newsletter.
Yay.
Yay.
Thank you so
Perfect.
much, Rachel. So here's our upcoming events, everyone. You'll see, you know, we have Gabby's from yesterday. Rachel was today. It was amazing. Thank you. Today we also have Washington, DC game night online. We're still doing all of our happy hours virtually until we know that it's completely safe to open up and that we can fit everyone, you know, from each city or whatnot into a space. You don't have to live in the area to join any of these happy hours. Next week, we have Matt and the Memphis Tourist Board, Nomadic Matt himself and the Memphis Tourist Board coming on to talk about Memphis, which is super cool. And then we're hearing from Emma Morel, who's in Singapore on expat life. And then we have a Seattle travel happy hour. Like I said, our April book club has been postponed. So we're hoping to reschedule that for later in the year. And then our next book club will be May 5th with Marco Polo Didn't Go There with Rolf Potts. So this will be an interesting one. So thank you all again for being part of this travel community. We appreciate every single one of you. It would not be the same if it was just Rachel and I talking about Italy, especially since I've never been. So thank you all, and we hope to see you next time at the next Nomadic Network event. Have a great day.